They told me silence can be a betrayal, but they never warned me how sometimes silence is salvation. I stood at the edge of the dust-worn porch, the sun setting like fire over the mesquite trees, and watched the truck disappear with my only daughter inside her veil catching the wind like a whisper I couldn't hold on to. Her name is Clara. She's 30 now. Back when she was little, she used to run through these fields with her arms out like a bird. Her laughter could tame a wild horse. But on the day she left, there was no laughter. Just suitcases, a kiss on the cheek, and that look in her eyes part goodbye, part something else I couldn't read. She married a man named Drew. Sharp jaw, firm handshake, clean fingernails, the kind of man who wore boots for style, not for mud. He came from money, and even though he tried to play humble, I could tell he was used to being listened to. From the very first dinner, he'd eye the house like he was evaluating it, like he was doing the math on what it could be worth if someone fixed it up. I didn't tell him about the ranch. Didn't tell Clara either. They thought I owned a crumbling 2-bedroom house and 20 acres of dry land barely worth grazing. That's what I let them think. They didn't know about the inheritance, about the 600 acres of prime pasture, the underground water rights, or the mineral contracts quietly paying out every quarter. They didn't know that just 10 miles south, nestled in the folds of a canyon no GPS could trace, lay the original homestead, a place untouched by time. That land has been in my family for 4 generations. My great-grandfather bled for it. My father died on it, and I was born under its stars. But I knew the second I met Drew that if he knew what I had, he'd never let go of Clara. Not because he loved her, but because he loved opportunity. Men like him always sniff it out and destroy what they don't understand. The day after their wedding, Drew asked me point blank, "So, what's the deal with this place? You planning to sell anytime soon? Clara and I could help clean it up, maybe flip it." I looked him in the eye, tipped my hat back, and said, "Son, this place won't sell till I'm in the ground. And even then, maybe not." He laughed, thought I was joking. But I wasn't. Clara didn't push. She thought I was just being my usual stubborn self, the way old cowboys get when they've buried too many friends and outlived too many dogs. I let them drive away, start their new life in Austin. Drew got a job at some tech startup, and Clara picked up interior design work. I got postcards for a while, then emails, then silence. That was 2 years ago. Last week, Clara showed up again. Alone. She didn't call first, didn't knock, just showed up on the porch with puffy eyes, cracked lips, and a trembling voice that said, "Daddy, I didn't know where else to go." I didn't ask questions, just opened the door. She didn't talk the first day, sat in the old rocking chair, wrapped in a wool blanket even though it was 85 degrees out, and stared at the fields. I brought her cornbread and coffee, watched her pick at it. On the second night, she spoke. "He hit me," she said. "Not with his hands. Not at first. But then later. My gut twisted. I'd known. I didn't want to admit it, but I'd known. I'd seen the way Drew's voice sharpened when Clara disagreed. The way he called her dramatic when she cried over silly things. I'd seen him grip her arm too tightly when she laughed too loud at dinner. She told me the rest slowly. How he controlled everything, her bank account, her phone, even what friends she was allowed to keep. He had a password to her life. And when she pushed back, he pushed harder. "I thought I could fix it," she whispered. "I thought I owed it to him to try." I sat there, fists clenched. But rage wouldn't help her. She didn't need fire. She needed ground. "I'm sorry," I finally said. "I'm sorry too," she whispered back. "For not calling. For letting him keep me from you." We sat in silence for a while, listening to the creak of the windmill turning lazily in the dusk. Then I got up, grabbed the keys from the drawer, and said, "Come on." "Where are we going?" she asked. "To the ranch," I said. "The real one." We drove out past the barbed wire fence, down the gravel road that curved through the hills like a secret. After 20 minutes, we hit the hidden turn, overgrown now, barely noticeable. I watched her eyes widen as we crested the final hill. Below us stretched the valley, golden fields, a winding stream, the old barn still standing proud against time. The cabin was there, too small, but sturdy. A place that felt like it had been waiting for her. Her hand reached for mine. "What is this place?" she breathed. "Home," I said. She looked at me, tears glinting. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" I hesitated, heart tight. "Because I needed to know who you were without it. And I needed to protect you from people who'd only love you with it." Her breath hitched. She looked back at the land. It's beautiful, she whispered. And peaceful, like it's never been touched by him. It hasn't, I said. And it never will be. We stayed the night in the cabin. No cell service. No noise. Just the soft sound of crickets and the lowing of cattle in the distance. She slept for 12 hours straight. In the morning, I found her standing barefoot in the field, her arms spread just like when she was little, face tilted toward the sun. Can I stay? She asked. I smiled. Clara, I said, this place was always yours. I was just holding it until you were ready. She started to cry, then the kind of cry that breaks things open. And I held her, not as a father trying to fix what was broken, but as a man honoring the strength it took her to return. I'm so glad I didn't tell her back then. Because now, she gets to choose it freely. Not as a handout, not as a trophy, but as a rebirth. And this time, no one will take it from her. Clara spent the next few days reacquainting herself with the land like it was a long-lost part of her soul. She hiked the trails barefoot, let the creek water run between her fingers, and sat under the twisted cottonwood where I used to read her cowboy fables when she was a girl. The lines in her face began to soften. The shadows under her eyes didn't disappear, but they started to lift. I can breathe here, she said on the third morning. I didn't realize how long I'd been holding my breath. I didn't say much. I've learned that sometimes the best thing a man can do is keep his mouth shut and let the wind do the talking. But something shifted between us. Not just between father and daughter, something bigger, deeper. It felt like the land itself was wrapping its arms around her, saying, "Welcome home, we've missed you." One afternoon, she wandered into the old barn. Dust hung in the air like memory. I watched from the door as she ran her hand over the wood beam, then opened a small cedar trunk in the corner. Inside were some of her mother's things: a scarf, a journal, a bundle of letters tied with twine. She kept these here? Clara asked, kneeling. I nodded. She said the barn was the one place where the world never told her who to be. So she hid the parts of herself she loved most here. Clara didn't answer, just sat with the journal in her lap, thumbing through pages inked with her mother's delicate, looping handwriting. Later that night, by the fire, she asked me if I'd ever been scared to be alone after Mom died. All the time, I said, but I figured if I kept walking forward, something would meet me halfway. She looked at the flames like they held some secret. I don't know if I can go back to the life I had, she whispered. You don't have to, I said. That life was built on someone else's idea of who you should be. But what do I do now? I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence sit before I answered. You start again. Right here, if you want. The ranch needs someone who cares about more than the profit margins. It needs someone who'll listen. Her eyes flickered toward me. Are you saying you want me to take it over? I'm saying it's yours, I said. Always has been. Clara's lip trembled, but she didn't cry this time. She just nodded, slowly, like she was accepting something far greater than just land. But nothing that beautiful comes without storm clouds. That night, the past came knocking hard. A car pulled up the gravel road around midnight, headlights cutting through the dark like accusations. I stepped out onto the porch with my rifle slung low, just in case. The door opened. Drew. He looked thinner, more unshaven than I remembered. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. But his voice? Still smooth. Still poison honey. I figured she'd be here, he said, stepping out. Clara was behind me in a flash. I felt her breath hitch the moment she saw him. I told you not to follow me, she said. I just want to talk, Drew replied, hands up like he was some poor misunderstood saint. You ghosted me, Clara. You didn't answer my texts, my calls. You disappeared. I left, she said. That's not the same. You didn't give me a chance. You had years of chances, she cut in. Her voice shook, but held. He glanced at me then, eyes scanning the porch like he was assessing a battlefield. You going to let her treat me like this, sir? After all I've done for her? That word, sir, made my skin crawl. I stepped down one stair, meeting him halfway. You did what you did, son. And now you're done. I'm still her husband, he said, voice tightening. Legally. For now, Clara said from behind me. But not for long. Drew's jaw clenched. You think you can just hide out here and forget everything? This place, this old manhut doesn't even have anything. He's bluffing. I smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. You're right, I said. This place is worthless to people like you. His eyes narrowed. He could feel it slipping, and men like him don't go quiet. They push. You don't get to walk away from me, Clara. I gave you everything. No, she said. You took everything. I'm just finally taking it back. He started to step forward, but I raised the rifle, not aimed, just held. That's close enough. He froze. Clara stepped out from behind me, chin high. Leave. If you ever come back here again, I'll file the restraining order so fast your head will spin. Something in Drew's face cracked, just for a second. A flicker of disbelief that she was really standing up to him, that the woman he controlled like a puppet had grown a spine of steel. He turned without another word, slammed the car door, and tore off down the road, dust and fury chasing him. Clara exhaled so hard she collapsed to her knees. I didn't say anything, just sat down next to her in the dirt. We stayed there until the sun started to rise, golden and quiet. The days that followed felt lighter. Clara began working the land like she'd been born to it. She mended the old fence line, learned how to rotate the grazing fields, studied the mineral reports I kept in the safe. She wasn't playing rancher. She was becoming one. I taught her everything my father taught me. How to read the clouds, how to listen to the soil, how to talk to a spooked calf without spooking it more. One evening, I watched her handle a busted irrigation pipe with a wrench in one hand and a cold beer in the other, laughing with mud on her cheeks. I swear, I saw her mother in her face. A few weeks later, she came into the house with a clipboard and a plan. I've been thinking, she said. This ranch could be more. We've got the land, the history. What if we opened it up? Not for tourists, for women like me. Women who need to get away, who need to remember who they are. I sat forward, the idea unfolding in my chest like sunrise. You're talking about a shelter? I asked. No, she said. A sanctuary. We spent the next month laying groundwork. Clara made calls, found nonprofit partners, designed cabins, reached out to counselors who specialized in emotional abuse. Every step she took, I saw her grow taller, stronger, more certain of her voice. One day, she turned to me and said, I used to think healing meant going back to who I was before Drew. But I don't want that anymore. What do you want? I want to become someone I've never been, she said. Someone I get to choose. That night, I wrote a new will. Transferred the ranch to her name. Not with strings. Not with conditions. Just trust. I didn't need control. I'd had my time. Now it was hers. And I couldn't be prouder of the woman rising from the ashes of everything she survived. Some days we worked until our hands were blistered, and yet Clara never once complained. She was a different kind of strong now, not the fragile strength of someone trying to survive, but the deep, rooted strength of someone who knows exactly what they've come through. And the ranch felt it. The grass was greener. The cattle moved differently. The wind sang softer through the trees, like the land itself was relieved to finally be heard again. One morning, I found Clara standing in the small chapel on the hill. It hadn't been used in years, just a one-room wood frame building her grandmother used to clean every Sunday. Clara had dusted off the old pews, cleaned the windows, and lit a candle at the front. I stood at the doorway and watched as she knelt, not in prayer, exactly, but in stillness. After a while, she turned to me. I want this to be a place where people find quiet, she said. Not just silence, but the kind that feels like truth. I stepped in and sat down beside her. It already is, I said. You just remembered. A week later, she received a letter. From Drew. It came in a plain envelope, no return address. Inside were two things, a signed divorce agreement, and a note that simply read, You win. Clara held it in her hands like it weighed 100 pounds. Then she lit a match and burned the letter right there on the porch. She didn't speak as the ashes blew away. She just smiled faintly, then turned back toward the ranch with new eyes. Now, she said, let's build something. We started small. Renovated the bunkhouse first. Turned it into a 2-room cabin with warm lighting and shelves lined with paperbacks and blankets. Then we cleaned out the old guest house, gave it fresh paint, and fixed the plumbing. Word started to spread. Women came. Quiet ones. Scared ones. Angry ones. Grieving ones. They arrived with nothing but a suitcase and a silence I recognized all too well. And Clara? She greeted every one of them herself. Wrapped them in her arms. Showed them the trails. Taught them how to feed the chickens. Let them breathe. Sometimes they stayed a week. Sometimes longer. Some of them came back, just to sit by the fire with her. Just to feel seen. She never pried, never pushed. She simply listened. One woman named Rosa, a mother of 3, stayed almost a month. She barely spoke the first 2 weeks. Then, one evening, While washing dishes beside Clara, she whispered, "He broke me." And Clara said, "Then we'll help you put yourself back together. But only the pieces you want to keep." That night, Rosa laughed for the first time. It was quiet, but it echoed through the walls of that kitchen like thunder. People from town began asking questions. Rumors swirled. Some folks didn't like what we were doing. "She's turning the ranch into a women's camp," someone muttered at the feed store. "Looks like a charity case," another said. Let them talk. I'd spent too many years worrying what people thought. This land had been a battleground long before I ever inherited it. First for water, then oil, then money. Now, it was sacred for something else entirely: healing. Clara didn't flinch when the gossip came. She walked into the co-op one morning, looked those same men in the eye, and said, "We're not asking your permission." They didn't say a damn word after that. One night, as we sat under the stars, Clara turned to me and asked, "Do you ever regret not telling me sooner?" I thought about it. About all the years I spent hiding that ranch like a secret treasure. About all the times I almost told her but didn't trust what might happen next. "No," I said slowly, "because if I'd told you then, he would have gotten his claws into it. And this land deserves better." She nodded, but her brow furrowed. "And what about me? Did I deserve better?" That question, it burned in my chest like wildfire. "You always did," I said. "I just didn't know how to protect you and trust you at the same time." She put her head on my shoulder. "I think I understand now," she whispered. We sat there a while longer, wrapped in quiet. Sometimes the most healing words are the ones left unspoken. The next morning, Clara handed me a manila folder with legal papers inside. "What's this?" I asked. "A trust," she said. "For the ranch. I talked to a lawyer in Austin. It protects the land. Ensures it can't ever be sold or exploited. Not by me. Not by anyone." I flipped through the documents. Her name, signed at the bottom. And mine. "You sure?" I asked. She nodded. "I don't want this place to die with us. I want it to outlive me. Outlive every woman who ever sets foot on it." I swallowed hard. She was building legacy now. Not for status. Not for wealth. But for meaning. The kind of legacy that plants trees whose shade we'll never sit under. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked out to the porch, stared across the darkened fields, and listened to the creak of the windmill. I thought of my father. Of my mother. Of the men and women who bled into this soil. And I thanked them. Because somehow, even without knowing it, they'd paved the way for this. For Clara. For all of them. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the last of my kind. I felt like the beginning of something new. The first snowfall came early that year. It dusted the fields like powdered sugar, quieting everything. The cattle moved slower. The air held its breath. Even the wind, usually restless across the valley, moved with reverence. Clara stood on the porch that morning wrapped in one of her mother's old shawls. She held a mug of coffee in her hands and stared out at the hills with eyes that saw more than the landscape. "There's something sacred about snow," she said. "It covers things without hiding them." I nodded. It's nature's way of asking us to pause. The sanctuary was running strong by then. We had 6 women living on the ranch, some with children, some alone. All of them recovering. All of them in some phase of rebuilding. It was a strange kind of family we'd gathered. No one was related, but we all understood each other in a way blood alone couldn't explain. One woman, Angie, had a 4-year-old daughter named Lila. She was a quiet girl, except when she was around Clara. Then she lit up like Christmas morning. She followed Clara around the ranch like a little duckling, helped her collect eggs, brushed the horses, even tried to help when Clara was fixing the fence line, though her tiny hammer did more harm than good. Clara never minded. She knelt beside Lila one afternoon and said, "This land will always be here when you need it." Lila tilted her head. "Forever. Forever," Clara whispered. That word echoed in me for days. I had lived my life trying to preserve what my father gave me. Clara was building something that would outlive her completely. It made me think about legacy again, not as inheritance, but as intention. Later that week, I got a call from an old friend of mine, Jack Raleigh. He used to run cattle with me back in the 70s before he lost his wife and moved north. "I heard what y'all are doing down there," he said over the crackle of the line. "Turning the ranch into some kind of haven." "That's right." He went quiet for a beat. "Well, I got 40 acres outside of Lubbock I don't use anymore. If Clara wants it, it's hers. For free." I blinked. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." I'd rather see it do good than rot under a pipeline. Let her build more of whatever it is y'all got going. When I told Clara, she cried. Real tears. Not the broken, kind, grateful ones. I don't even know this man, she said. You don't need to, I replied. He knows you now. We drove out to see the land a week later. It was rugged, but promising. Clara stood in the middle of it with the wind pulling at her hair and said, This will be our second home, for the ones who can't come here. She started drawing plans the next day. And that's when the media came. It started small. A reporter from a local paper had heard about the sanctuary through one of the women who'd left. Then a national magazine picked it up. Before long, we had camera crews asking for interviews and drones buzzing over the fields. Clara wasn't interested in fame, but she knew what attention could do. If it brings more women to safety, she said, then let them come. She gave one interview. Just one. In it, she said something I'll never forget. I'm not a survivor, she said, looking straight into the lens. I'm a steward. Of land, of healing, of second chances. Those words spread like wildfire. Donations poured in. People offered to volunteer, to cook, to clean, to build. And with every gesture, Clara responded with gratitude, but never ego. She stayed grounded, humble, fierce. And then, one morning, I got a letter in the mail. From Drew. Just a plain envelope again. But this time, the message wasn't venom. It was a check. $10,000. No note. Just the money. Clara looked at it, then handed it to me. What do I do with this? She asked. I stared at it for a long time. Then I took it into the barn and pinned it to the wall with a rusty nail. Let it hang there, I said, as a reminder that even broken things can offer something useful, but they don't get to stay. She nodded once, and we never spoke of it again. Months passed. The snow melted. Wildflowers bloomed. We built a greenhouse. Started growing vegetables year-round. The women planted herbs, strawberries, even sunflowers. It became a place not just of rest but of creation. And in that soil, something else grew. Clara started smiling more, laughing deeper. One evening, I saw her talking to one of the volunteers, John, a local vet who'd been helping with the livestock. They were standing by the horse paddock, talking quietly. She laughed, touched his arm. My gut clenched for a second. The protective father still in me bristled. But then I saw her face. It wasn't the giddy, naive smile of someone falling fast. It was the steady, open smile of someone who knew her worth now and wouldn't trade it for anything. Later, I asked her about him. He's kind, she said simply. He doesn't try to fix me, just listens. That's rare, I said. I'm not in a rush, she replied. I don't need to be saved. I just want to grow beside someone, not under them. That night, I stood on the porch and realized something that hit me like a quiet wave. She didn't need me to protect her anymore. Not because I had failed, but because I had succeeded. I had given her a place where she could become who she was meant to be. And now, she was doing the same for others. One day, I won't be here anymore. My boots will empty. My hat will hang on the wall. But I know now without a doubt that this land, this legacy, this life I spent building will carry on. Because Clara didn't just inherit the ranch. She inherited the fire,